So sa latest episode, actually hindi pa ako Hindi, pause. Nag-record pala siya. Okay, welcome back. So I'm using a different device. I got stuck dito sa office ni Attorney Dina De Leon because of traffic and all. But I'm so glad to be joined by a very good friend of mine. Pre-pandemic days pa kami nagmamarites. But finally, I have a chance not only to talk to him, but also see his wonderful artsy, Parisian site. So, Attorney Emil Maranyon from Tam Law firm. I just had to make sure kung paras pa rin yung law firm niya or something like that. Thank you so much, Emil, for joining us. Alam ko nasa kabilang channel ka nung isang gabi. So we're gonna make sure wala. Honestly, I have nothing. But people are so bad. Pinapaano kami ni Christian. So, I have no issue with the guy. I love the guy. I'm even open to collaborating with him and all of that. But anyway, let's talk about a range of things. But obviously, unang-una nandito ka because isa ka sa may pakanan na si Cardema will never have his dream of becoming a congressman. So can you just give us a background going back to the 2019 case, starting with even questioning? Kaya sabi ko, Duterte Youth, my quotation mark. Can you talk about your case, Emil?
So actually, hindi yung cancellation case namin was not the first case that we filed. So the first case that we filed actually was regarding the cancellation ng nomination ni Cardema as the first nominee of Duterte Youth. So yun po yung pinakauna. Ang reason kasi niyan is hindi naman si Cardema ang original na nominee ng Duterte Youth. He was, of course, before the chairman of the National Youth Commission. And a day before the 2019 elections, bigla siyang nag-substitute, nag-resign ng lahat ng nominees and bigla siyang pumasok a day before the elections. So kumbaga na scrutinize yung kanyang qualifications only after the elections when they already won a slot. So what we did is when we checked his papers, it turned out that he was already 32 years old. Because supposedly Duterte Youth represents the youth sector, and under the law, when you talk about the word youth, ang definition niyan is between 25 to 30 years old. Okay? So actually
ito yung age group natin, di ba, Emil? This is our age group, no?
How I wish. But ang importante mukhang 25 to 30 years old, di ba? So
mas yata yun ang maging problema. Kung 25.
Yan. So what we did actually was we filed a cancellation case and we eventually won it sa division level and it was sustained by the NBank. And in fact, the Duterte Youth Party List did not contest na the cancellation ni Cardema. So naging final and executory yung judgment na COMELEC na merong misrepresentation yung Duterte Youth as regards the qualification of Cardema. But in the process actually of preparing our case sa COMELEC, it turned out na nung binubuksan namin yung case file, na-realize namin bigla na, wait, hindi pala siya registered after all. After all the cases that we filed, hindi pala siya registered. So we filed the case, and in fact, it was novel yung case na final namin because it was a petition to declare as null and void yung petition ni Cardema, yung Duterte Youth Party List. And in the alternative, if ever na mali kami doon sa unang allegation namin na hindi sila registered, ang sabi namin, nonetheless, meron pa rin siyang grounds na for the cancellation. So two-tiered yung aming arguments, di ba? Kasi nga in the first place, kung hindi siya registered in the first place, then there's nothing to cancel. So yun yung aming idea at the time. So in fact, my former boss, former chairman Sixto Brillantes, was ako the collaborating counsel. So dalawa kami. In fact, at that time, 2019, I already left his office. After COMELEC, nag-separate ways na kami because I went to London and studied, and pagbalik ko, I did something else. But for this case, nag-collab kami uli ng old boss ko, and it was, of course, a really nice moment at the time. But unfortunately, umupo ng hindi na-decidean yung case for 5 years. And in fact, namatay na nga yung boss ko. Hindi niya pa nakikita yung resulta ng kaso namin. And we were very fortunate that under this administration of the COMELEC, finally na-decide na and it was resolved in our favor just last night. So preskong presko pa po ito.
Speaking of press conference, parang mas bumata ka since pre-pandemic days.
Ano ba yan? Sa lighting lang yan.
Sa lighting mo. Ingit lang ako kasi hindi magandang lighting namin dito sa office ni Dino, but ayusin namin in the future. But going back to this, of course, yung kasama din sa petition niya is questioning whether Duterte Youth to begin with is a party list in terms of sectoral representation. I mean, alam na natin, binaboy na yung party list ng mga trapos, making it the cheap way to get into the, basically backdoor into the Congress. But medyo next leveling Duterte youth. Like, ano to, Mussolini youth? Is this like a fascist? Like, what is I mean, in what sense are they sectoral representation group? And in what sense they are actually not based on your petition? Ano
Well,
bang atikain nila?
well, ang una naming case na final dun sa qualification ni Cardema, we allege nga na because under the Constitution nga, if you're under the Constitution and under the party list system law, which is RA 7941, for you to become a representative ng youth sector, then you must be between 25 to 30 years old, okay? So, ang defense ni Cardema at that time is, wait lang, sabi nila, hindi kami youth sector lang. So youth sector kami and young professionals. Yun yung defense nila. In other words, multi-sectoral kami and ang allegation nila is Cardema happened to be from the young professional sector, not from the youth, and therefore hindi siya covered ng age limitation, okay? But ang argument namin at the time, convenient excuse lang na sinasabi na young professional yan because when you read the actual petition, you can see there na paulit-ulit na nakasulat doon na youth, 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 youth. In fact, the name itself, Duterte Youth, di ba? Hindi naman sinabi Duterte Youth and Professionals. So in other words, afterthought lang yung claim nila na may professional involved doon. In fact, the COMELEC division ruled na tama kami, youth sector nga sila. And also, the NBank also ruled the youth sector nga. And in fact, Duterte Youth did not contest the ruling of both the division and the NBank, which made it final and executory as regards the true nature of the Duterte Youth. So talagang youth sector sila. Yun. So yun po yung
baka naman yung youth nila is World Economic Forum kasi alam ko pag World Economic Forum young leader until 40 yata or 42 yata yung youth nila, so baka ganyan ang kanilang understanding of youth. But going back to this, wasn't he working sa government by this time, National Youth Commission? Chairman siya, di ba?
Well, hindi ko alam, but alam ko wala na siya sa NYC as of now.
Noon, when he was trying to be congressman first time.
Yes, he was formerly part of the National Youth Commission. And in fact nga, yung isang allegation namin doon sa aming cancellation, of course, apart from hindi nagkaroon ng publication, which we will discuss later, hopefully, ang allegation namin doon is actually ginamit niya yung position niya sa NYC to promote Duterte Youth. Because can you imagine, sitting NYC president siya, and he was going around the country using government funds and using his title as NYC chairman, but at the same time, indirectly promoting Duterte Youth, which is a candidate at that time for party list. So kumbaga, merong abuse of state resources to particularly favor yung takbo nila for party list. And in fact, under the law, which is RA 7941, one of the grounds for cancellation is yung pagkaroon ng receiving assistance from government. So we argued actually in our petition na nasabi namin technically because ginamit niya yung position niya sa NYC was technically assisting Duterte Youth. And in fact, the COMELEC in their decision yesterday affirmed and in fact, kumbaga sustained our interpretation na nagkaroon nga ng assistance yung NYC to Duterte Youth and therefore, ground po yan for cancellation. So, ang decision yesterday was in fact very well written. Ang ganda po ng decision, very comprehensive, and we're very happy that the COMELEC sustained all our arguments actually. So, lahat yan sustained ng COMELEC.
Knockout. Yeah, that's why I raised the NYC because parang using state resources for electioneering or something like that, medyo conflict of interest at the very least. But I want to also go back to the other issue that you raised kanina, which is dapat ilalabas sa newspapers, dapat medyo may public hearing. Can we discuss why mahalaga dito sa party list registration yung mga ganitong mekanismo kung saan dapat may FYI sa publiko? Can you explain to people what is the logic behind that, constitutionally speaking, and how that was violated in the case of Duterte Youth?
Well, unang-una, we have to state no na kumbaga, we are not just talking here of a technicality na pwede mong iset aside, no? We are talking here of a very important requirement in registering party lists. Okay, so number one, nakasulat yan talaga sa Constitution. So sabi sa Constitution, you can only register a party. COMELEC can only register a party after sufficient publication. So nakasulat po yun sa Constitution. So sa mga galit sa akin, hindi po ako ang nag-imbento yan. Sisihin niyo po yung framers ng 1987 Constitution. And apart from that, the law itself, RA 7941, also requires and echoes the same requirements sa Constitution. Sinasabi doon sa batas na meron din dapat publication. Okay? So, in other words, the requirement is not only statutory but also constitutional. In other words, COMELEC, 'di ba? Kahit sabihin niya exempt yung Duterte Youth, it cannot do so because of course the Constitution is the supreme law. So dapat mag-comply ang COMELEC doon. That's why sabi ko nga never ako matatalo sa kasong to because
Walang
binabasa
lusot.
ko konstitusyon eh. Hindi naman unless the Supreme Court will say na, ay, exempt yan. Okay, napaka-special naman ng Duterte Youth yung para ma-exempt siya sa provision ng Constitution. Anyway, anong logic ngayon ng Constitution at saka ng batas in actually requiring publication? So, we have to discuss ano ba yung proseso ng pag-register. So basically, magpa-file ka ng petition sa COMELEC and the moment na merong sabi ng COMELEC, oy, complete yung requirements mo. Okay, meron checklist yan. Okay, ito yung requirements para requirements yung para mag-register. Okay? So check yan. Okay? Pag kumpleto ang requirements mo, na-attach mo lahat, then you go through the process of publication. So utusan ng COMELEC yung party, okay, you can now publish because you passed the first stage of the assessment. Okay? Anong purpose ng publication? Sabi sa order ng COMELEC, i-publish mo ang petition mo, okay, to inform the whole world, okay, that a certain group is trying to apply to become a party list organization and run in the upcoming elections, okay? So the purpose is to inform, and with that information, ina-allow ng COMELEC yung publiko to actually file their opposition or reklamo or whatsoever. Pwede silang pumunta, mag-appear doon sa hearing na nakasulat din doon sa publication. Okay? So, isi-set yung date, ang time, location ng hearing, and lahat ng may reklamo, pumunta doon. Okay? Remember, the nature of the registration of party list is actually in rem because ibig sabihin, you are trying to settle the status of a particular group of people. And this becomes binding to the whole world. Okay? Binding sa lahat. That is why para maging binding, you also have to inform them and give them the opportunity to na magreklamo or support whatsoever. So in this case, for example, ng Duterte Youth, hindi po na-inform ang public. In other words, dahil hindi po na-inform ang public, hindi po nabigyan ng opportunity ang publiko to file their opposition sa Duterte Youth. And this is precisely why nakalusot yung Ronald Cardema na hindi naman youth, di ba? Pero tumatakbo in a youth sector because nga hindi nabigyan ng pagkakataon na mas scrutinize ng public, okay? Apart from that, the other important another importance ng publication is that it vests COMELEC with jurisdiction. Ibig sabihin, COMELEC can only act on the petition the moment it acquires jurisdiction over the case. And an in rem case, ang acquisition jurisdiction is through publication. So, in other words, kung hindi po na-acquire ng COMELEC yung jurisdiction over the petition to register, that would mean na it cannot grant the petition to register because wala kang jurisdiction eh. Wala kang karapatan, wala kang authority to decide on the case because it has yet to be conferred sa'yo ng batas, which can be conferred only through publication. Sabi sa batas, sabi sa Supreme Court, when there is no jurisdiction, yung body na nag-handle ng case, the only thing that it can do is to dismiss. Okay? It cannot grant, it cannot allow because wala siyang jurisdiction. So this is what happened sa Duterte Youth. Hindi nagkaroon ng publication. Okay? So, dahil walang publication, that would mean na na-violate yung Constitution at sa yung batas. Second is, and more important thing is that hindi nagkaroon ng jurisdiction yung COMELEC as regards his case, and therefore, COMELEC has no way of granting it except to dismiss the petition. So, eto po yung complication. We're not talking here of a very very simple technicality, but we're talking here about the very heart of the petition to register, which is jurisdiction. And that's why I remain very confident kahit saan nating dalhin, kahit umabot tayo sa Mars at saka sa Jupiter, they will never win this case.
Except they made it to the Congress under the previous administration, didn't they? I mean, what is the track record of Duterte Youth when they were still in the game? Parang nagkalat lang sila nung sa Quadcom hearing, di ba? Ano bang achieve? Di ba they had a representative? Yung isang...
Well, to be honest, hindi ko din alam kasi nga hindi ko din narinig. Well, in fact nga, I don't know. I have no way of verifying whether the memes are true that they have filed zero legislation. But sa akin, whether or not that is true, irrelevant na yan eh. Because in the first place, kung hindi ka registered, dapat hindi nasama ang pangalan mo sa balota. Hindi dapat inallow yung tao na iboto ka. And dapat hindi ka ni pinaupo sa Kongreso. As regards the reasons why it happened, I think of course I don't have to pinpoint pa, hindi ko na siguro kailangan ituro sa inyo. Kasi obvious naman that Duterte Youth has been intimately connected with the past administration. In fact, kapangalan nila yung dating pangulo natin. And of course, kayo na bahala mag-connect ng dots on why it happened.
Well,
But
I think,
quite obvious
like,
one.
let's just call it out. I mean, basically, tinokang nila their way. I mean, that was their version of legal tokang, right? Like, they just bara their way through. But one person stood up to them, right? Guanzon, our good friend. medyo nagsusuti lang kami recently ni Ma'am Guanzon. But she was that one person who initially really stood up to this, and although later on she was trying to go to the party list, and then the other side. This is an aside, but what is the Guanzon angle to this unfolding drama?
Well, si Guanzon at the time was one of the most vocal members of the commission who actually, as you said, stood up actually to the all the controversies that surrounded the Duterte Youth. And ako very I admire Commissioner Guanzon for that. And because of her stance before, a lot of people actually kumbaga maraming tao yung nakaalam at saka nanindigan as regards sa issue ng Duterte Youth because of her. So I'm very thankful for her for, even not directly supporting our case, but she was there actually to kumbaga to inform the public as regards what's happening
And
within
hold the
Congress.
line.
Oh, yeah, that is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Hold the line. But I'm not gonna say more. Baka mag-away na naman kami. But let's see. This is totally unrelated, but I'm hearing stuff about Sara Duterte having a new spokesperson soon. But I'm sure totally unrelated topic. But since we discussed Duterte Youth, and really there's not much to discuss because wala naman silang achievements at all before they were taken out. Let's talk about the Duterte Old. Speaking of Duterte Old, okay, like kahapon I was talking to my contacts in Europe about the interim release issue. No, we had Christina Conti on this show also multiple times before, but to the degree that you can share your point of view, because the last time we had a conversation in person, this is pre-pandemic. We had some conversation about. I hope it's okay. We had conversation about the extrajudicial killings, right? And the issue of providing evidence ukol doon sa mga biktima ng extrajudicial killings. I met one of the family members in Europe. I met one a few days ago. Dito sa Pilipinas, yung mga nanay, kapatid, pamilya nila ay nakausap po natin. So how are you feeling about the direction of the ICC, the whole ICC drama? I want to understand. So obviously, this is a big victory for you on the Duterte Youth issue, a bit belated, I would say. But nevertheless, success is success. How do you feel about the ICC issue, and how do you feel about the interim release arguments we're hearing? Because again, this is not confirmed, but a certain Southern European country reportedly may have indeed expressed its openness should the interim release be granted to host Tigong. Anyway, what is your take on Duterte Old?
Well, medyo personal sa akin, no? Because as you mentioned nga earlier, I spent some time actually working on the extrajudicial killings cases. So a lot of people actually know me as an election lawyer, but actually for more than a year, I actually spent time in the different kumbaga depressed areas of Metro Manila documenting yung extrajudicial killings. So kumbaga personal knowledge sa akin yung impact ng nangyari back in especially between 2016 and 2017, very personal sa akin and personally na-witness ko kung papaano nagka-crumble yung pamilya every time na may tinutukhang na tatay or breadwinner ng pamilya. So it's something na hindi lang theoretical from my point of view, but seeing these widows and children cry before you every day is something medyo nakaka-trauma din on my part as a lawyer, because at the time it was a bit sad na we were actually taught in school on how to give legal solutions to problems. But in this case, we simply felt powerless at the time, because you can't do anything. You can't file a case because, of course, you're fighting the very kumbaga, the very government na kung saan ka din tatakbo, and reportedly sila din yung gumagawa nito. And for me, what's happening now in the ICC, I think alam naman ng publiko yung position ko dito, na ako I find this actually as kumbaga hindi pa naman ito yung resolution na gusto naming mangyari, but I think seeing the glimpse of hope actually, na makita na may nangyayari, may ginagawa, and actually he will be put to trial hopefully soon. That's why in a way
September, no? September.
yeah, I'm quite happy. Um, of course, medyo hindi na ako, I've been back in the legal practice, in the election practice. Hindi na rin ako well connected with what's happening right now. But I just hope that what we did at the time perhaps nakakontribute din sa kaso ngayon before the ICC. Um, but for me, very important to, especially doon sa family members ng napatay, because I think in most cases actually ang hinahanap, because ang background ko actually is human rights, conflict management, and transitional justice. So that's my
Parang,
master's.
parang Carranza. We had Attorney Carranza also on this show, right? Transitional justice, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
so yan yung formal training ko. So my Master of Laws actually, yan yung specialty ko. So kumbaga, for many families all over the world, sa mga kung saan may genocide, may massive human rights violations, many of them hindi naman actually humihingi ng actual justice eh. Most of them hinihingi lang recognition na namatay yung kamag-anak namin and may mananagot dito. But of course, we want to bring it further pa na may actual na managot. But what's happening right now is, I think happy na yung lahat na at least gumalaw man lang yung wheels of justice. Now, as regards doon sa release, to be honest, hindi ko pa alam, because at the same time we have to acknowledge nga na while we say that extrajudicial is inhuman per se, but at the same time it is not a license for you to reciprocate it with the same inhuman response. But ang hesitation ko lang nito is, we've seen how crazy his supporters can become. Yung can you imagine, nagpipiket sila dun sa labas, kumakanta-kanta. And can you imagine if ma-release siya sa isang bansa without the security ng ICC, tapos accessible yung lugar, what madness na pwede nilang gawin. So, kumbaga, sila
Wait,
mismo,
didn't Kaufman say he will like basically cease from committing crimes? Was that true? Like, why would he say something like that if it's true?
well, hindi ko din alam kung that would be tantamount to an admission, but ang punto dito is, whatever that may be, ang punto dito is, question lang is whether masisecure ba natin na hindi siya tatakas or his supporters will not do something crazy. Because nga, one thing na ma-realize natin, hindi mo talaga sila makokontrola eh. Whether may umuutos sa kanila or wala, how they act on social media and in real life is something that is simply incomprehensible. So very irrational actually, na kumbaga sila mismo ang hadlang, I think, in yun doon sa paghingi ng temporary freedom ni
You're talking about intimidating attacks on the judges,
hindi lang yun.
trolling.
Yeah, baka atakihin,
Yeah.
baka i-force open yung something like that. We don't know, because nga kung the division, yung pagiging irrational on how they behave
Oh, they're
with the
fanatic
arrest
basically. Yeah.
of President Duterte, then I can imagine that what else can they do, di ba? So,
Well, all I can say is, sorry, like I was there at the just outside the detention center. All I can say is kawawang kawawa yung mga kapitbahay because the detention center is basically like a warehouse in the middle of a residential area, around 30 minutes walk away from Hague. And kawawang kawawa yung mga kapitbahay doon because ang ingay daw, ang gulo daw. They're not used to this. This is really, I think, the first time ever an ICC criminal or alleged criminal is inspiring if not directing this kind of response. So baka naman matuwa yung mga nandun sa kung inalis si Digong. But you're right. I mean, it could go wrong in 10 million different ways. Not to mention, baka may active threat into the victims of the family who are providing evidence to the prosecution time. And what is your understanding of that? I mean, what is your, if you were, hindi man bet, but what do you think are chances of Digong of being given interim release? Is he making drama na matanda na siya, kawawa na siya? This is the same guy who a few months ago said, uupakan niya yung mga ICC judges na macho and all of that.
well, ang basic principle ng human rights, ano naman yan eh, kumbaga yung pending judgment, usually ang general rule is dapat mabigyan ng freedom, 'di ba? Kasi nga may presumption of innocence. But I think more than the conversation as regards the human side of seeking justice, but I think yung importante doon, kaya bang ma-secure, yung kaya bang mapangalagaan yung fact na hindi ma-compromise, for example, yung detention niya or kung saan man yun. So I think mas ganun yung naiisip ko rather than the fact na kung whether entitled siya or wala. Because nga, kung isipin mo nga, if you were just to see it from the perspective of human rights and of course yung fact nga na advanced age na siya, frail yung health niya, as a general rule, of course, we are expected to show compassion. I think that's jurisprudence hindi lang dito sa Philippines yung kay Enrile, but even outside. Usually it is viewed na parang favorable dun sa rights ng tao, but at the same time, as much as we wanted to talk much about this, but medyo hindi rin ako I would yield to the real experts in talking about this topic. But of course, I have my own personal feelings about
Yeah,
this.
no, exactly. I'm just asking you. We have Christina wanted to give a little bit from the inside point of view on this, but I'm asking you because you have been involved
Oh
in
yeah,
of documenting the
yeah,
mass atrocities, etc. So I'm just asking you parang from the heart, hindi lang from the mind,
oh
how you
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
direction.
Yung ako, to be honest, until now, I'm still traumatized by all the conversations I had with the victims of the family. I mean, I can still remember yung every time na may kausap ka, naglulupasay, umiiyak sa harap mo. I think that's the side that most people don't see. I think most people online and even his supporters, nakikita nila numbers, statistics eh. But if you come to realize that when you talk about extrajudicial killings, you're not just talking about numbers, you're talking about real people who died without due process. And also, ang impact kasi ng extrajudicial killing, hindi lang dun sa actual na victim, but yung impact ng extrajudicial killings is yung pamilyang naapektuhan. Diba? Can you imagine, every time you kill a breadwinner, you kill the entire family. Diba? Sometimes
Or the
women,
community, basically.
even to the point of prostituting themselves para may mapakain sa anak, merong mga bata na tigil agad sa pag-aaral. And one of the last cases that I have handled actually, um, pinatay yung mismong tatay sa harap ng nanay at saka dalawang minor na anak, maliliit na bata. And I talked to them almost 6 months after the incident, and hindi pa nakakapagsalita yung mga bata because of the trauma of
Intergenerational trauma.
yung trauma na patayin yung tatay mo sa harap mo, and then yung utak ng tatay mo nag-splatter dun sa mga bata mismo. I mean, that's something na I cannot help but in a way nagiging personal rin, yung very personal for me yung usapin na to. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and in fact I was so traumatized that I left the 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 work actually and went back to my regular practice because sabi ko yung emotional side na to is too much for me. Ah, ayaw ko na umuwi sa bahay na ang bigat ng pakiramdam, and yung feeling of helplessness is something na new to me because wala kang magawa eh. 'Di ba? Andun ka, nakikinig ka, but wala kang mabibigay na tulong o resolution doon sa problem na sinishare sa iyo. 'Di ba? So I think that's something that in a way a trauma that I still feel until now.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, always think of the case of the desaparecidos in Argentina, and how for a long time there were a lot of people, especially middle class, upper class, people who were not affected, justifying, apologizing for the horrible, dirty wars na nangyari during the dictatorship in Argentina. We had versions of that in Paraguay, Chile, different countries, but in Argentina it was very interesting, right? Eventually, by the mid 1980s, 86 or something, there would be a trial. And once the people got to hear the story of people who were raped, tortured, and by some chance or sliver of luck, they were able to survive it, then slowly and slowly, or more than slowly, actually like turning public opinion and provided some room for at least some transitional justice or a measure of at least acknowledgement of that. My biggest problem, Emil, is that I'm not sure people ever heard really truly the story of the victims, or at least at the scale that they should hear. I was talking to the mom of one of the victims, and she said recently, nung after ICC, syempre natuwa sila. So they felt empowered enough to come out and finally say their side of the story. Next thing you know, there are all these troll farms and horrible people. Ang demonyo ang tawag ko sa kanila, who come out and say, hindi, adik kasi yan eh. Deserve niya eh, di ba? Or, ikaw, nanay ka na adik, baka ikaw rin, adik ka, yung ginagano talagang, imagine mo, you're already victimized, you're already traumatized, and then they also attack you for exposing the truth. Kaya ako, I was saying, alam mo, ito kailangan talaga ng whole of nation approach eh. The PNP, in fairness naman, I mean, of course, we don't wanna, count our, ahead of time, but at least si Torre, General Torre, insight from canning, putting into can some of the other folks, but he went to the CHR saying both namin and Commission on Human Rights issue. Like, he's sending some good signals, but I think eventually there has to be some reckoning, diba? Institutionalized security sector reform reckoning. But the Philippine media and influencers and all, they have to step up too. Yung kwento ng mga biktima talaga, hindi narinig ng tao. You know where I saw the best documentaries? NBC News. Like yung mga, Western news agencies have done better documentaries about the traumas, intergenerational traumas that you were describing, than, to be honest, the local news channels. Parang nasa news lang siya, pero yung proper, sustained exposition, expose, parang wala. And I was hoping to see that during Quadcom last year, pero parang nag-fizzle out eh. What do you think about that in terms of conscientizing the broader population and kind of a whole of nation reckoning with this tragic past?
Well, ang daming transitional justice models naman all over the world, no? As you mentioned nga, may Argentina, of course, a very famous one is South Africa, di ba? Yung post-apartheid, that's another very, meron din sa
The
Rwanda.
reconciliation.
Yeah, but there's no one formula actually in doing transitional justice. So when you talk about transitional justice to some of viewers, this means on how you deal actually with the post-genocide or post massive human rights
Mass
violation.
atrocities, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, how do you address the issue of number one, justice, okay? And of course you talk about, of course, reconciliation is one of them, but more importantly, yung merong memorialization, and ultimately yung how do you guarantee non-repetition, okay? So there's no one formula, walang canned formula on how do you approach a transitional justice system. But as you mentioned nga, yung presence ng strong troll farms, mga trolls, so strong social media presence ng Duterte camp, for example, is one of the challenges sa transitional justice mechanism natin. But yung punto dito, this will pose as a challenge to whoever is planning to do one. And this needs to be factored in doon sa whatever TJ na transitional justice mechanism na gagamitin natin. So, but I believe that these stories are very powerful, and the moment na may proper avenue or may proper way of retelling them in a very public way na wala kang escape, um, I think people will understand bakit mali yun at saka bakit dapat hindi na ulitin yun. I think most people are very, kumbaga, kumbaga, yung feeling nila is deserve nila yon precisely because hindi nila alam yung kwento. One of the most memorable stories actually is may isang mag-asawa. So, araw ng birthday niya, tapos a night before daw, hiningi niya sa asawa niya na kahit man lang daw may makain silang pansit sa birthday niya. And nangyari is kinaumagahan, um, ginising na lang siya ng mga kapitbahay niya saying na nabaril yung asawa niya ng riding in tandem. Tapos nung tumakbo siya, nakita niya yung asawa niya, duguan na dun sa labas, may bit-bit to na pansit. And she was crying in front of me, telling me na sinisisi niya yung sarili niya. Bakit daw hiningi niya pa yung pansit? Kung hindi daw sana hiningi niya yung pansit, dapat daw hindi namatay yung asawa niya. So she was crying there na kinikwento, sinisisi ang sarili niya. But of course, I was telling her na hindi kasalanan mo, hindi mo kasalanan yan. It was someone else. So kumbaga, wag mo sisin. But yung stories like that, pag
But that's
mali,
also I know this is very emotional, but napansin ko yun din yung coping mechanism. You rather blame yourself because you think the system is so cruel and unaccountable that there's no point even in blaming the government or trying to, di ba? Parang minsan coping mechanism, sisisin mo na lang sarili mo. Like this very tragic, wrenching story of the, basically, it just tells you that ang daming taong ganun. Basically, I mean, there are even communities saying, kasalanan natin kasi adik tayo or ganyan. Di ba? May ganun eh. You hear that they rather uh, direct it to at themselves knowing that wala silang maasahan sa sistema and they're scared that if they go for it there could be even more retribution and more people could die. I mean, it
yes,
was like doubly tragic in that sense.
that's why most transitional justice mechanisms actually including yung, of course, yung paniningil natin ng hustisya, usually nangyayari after makaalis na sa pwesto yung mga involved. So, logically, yun naman talaga ang nangyayari. And yun precisely na experience natin ngayon. And that's also the importance of why the ICC na forum actually is very important because there are things na hindi mo pwedeng masingil sa local forum considering nga yung clout, yung power, yung influence nila, which could easily um, create an impartial forum actually na para makuha natin yung hustisya na deserve ng mga biktima actually at saka yung mga pamilya nila. So I think this is a broader conversation about justice and human rights, but I think most people has yet to understand the importance of this and the importance of seeking justice for those families na affected nito. I'm telling you, ang sabi ko nga, I think you are correct that things will change the moment na umupo na yung most witnesses, most family members, lahat ng biktima doon and people get to listen whether they like it or not. The moment marinig nila yung kwento na to, it will change their opinions of what happened during the drug war will drastically change overnight. I think I'm quite confident with that. At the end of the day, mga Pilipino, they're very emotional people and stories like this, could change your positions, your political inclinations, even persuasions. These are very powerful stories and I think very important na masabi natin to publicly.
Absolutely. Obviously there's so much more we can discuss, but just to get through the gallery of rogues. So we talk about Duterte youth, Duterte old. Now naman pag-usapan na si Boy Kilay. What do you think about the whole impeachment drama? I mean, again, it's not your expertise. I mean, we'll have Justice Carpio soon also to discuss this back on the show. But from your understanding, this whole ping-pong, dribbling, whatever she's Escudero doing, are we facing a constitutional crisis or this is just trapo politics, legalist mumbo-jumbo? Because basically, sabi nga nila, kung may paraan, kung may gusto, may paraan. Kung takot, daming excuse, di ba? Daming dahilan. What is your read of it? Are we in a constitutional crisis situation? Are we heading towards that? Because that's the other accountability issue. The daughter, the
Well,
younger.
unang-una, you have to understand that the impeachment process is not really a legal process, but it's really a political process. Yung design actually ng impeachment process natin is in a way, I would always say as flawed because kung ang expectation mo is magiging legal trial or trial ito or a legal process, then dapat hindi sa Senado ang trial natin, but dapat by design dapat nilagay natin sa Supreme Court and let the justices of the Supreme Court handle the trial kung yun talaga yung gusto natin. But unfortunately, the design of the Constitution is to give the Senate actually the ball na sila hawak ng trial. And of course, the problem with that is there's no guarantee na yung uupo doon nakakaintindi rin ng batas. Of course, ang assumption doon is nakakaintindi sila ng batas, but apparently the past few batches ng Senate, we realized that pakaunti ng pakaunti yung abogado. In fact, less and less legal minds are entering the Senate. So when the very people who are in the impeachment court are not even lawyers who don't even understand the basics of how a trial should run, then you don't really expect much from what will happen in that court because kumbaga yung extent ng pwede nilang maibigay is beyond their own personal capacity and understanding of the law. Then you cannot expect much from them. That's why I would always say that the impeachment provision actually in the Constitution is flawed. Now, if you ask me if I were to redesign the Constitution, then I would rather have the Supreme Court become the impeachment court.
Right.
Yeah, because doon you go by evidence, you
Yeah.
go by the
The
rules.
procedures are, I mean, sure, the idea of sui generis has been taken to its clownish logical conclusion. Parang
Yes,
sui generis doesn't mean you just do whatever you want. I mean, like,
yes.
Patorni style of
But
arguments.
that's the downside. When yun nga yung sabi ko nga balik tayo dun sa situation na in the first place hindi siya legal process, it's a political process. So kung political process yung pinag-uusapan natin, hindi legal na usapan yung hindi question of legality yung pinag-uusapan, hindi legality yung pinag-uusapan.
Pero hindi dapat at least may mga parameters. I mean, to be fair to Coco Pimentel, ang argument niya is, sui generis, pero meron tayong saligang batas, which gives us some idea about what forthwith means.
Yes,
It
yes.
my
Of course.
Senate rules and precedents.
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
even the US jurisprudence could be a basis. So, kasi baka people will get a wrong idea that means just gawin mo kung anong gusto mo, numbers game na lang to.
No, but I'm talking here about the practicality of the process. Now, of course,
The reality of it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yan yung reality niya na of course looking at the composition of the Senate right now, how they acted, it's actually that very situation that we all don't like, is actually born of that flaw in the Constitution of allowing a political body to handle a legal trial. So when you do that, the persuasion is the driving force of the trial is no longer law and procedure, but rather the driving force is political inclination, political leanings, and political persuasion. And yun yung nakikita natin ngayon. That's why for me, this is something which is not surprising at all because it's the politics in action actually, and that for me is the very flaw of the process.
Since we discussed Boy Kilay, I think we have to talk about also Harry Roque just to close this show. For some reason, I cannot say if Jesus Codero or Harry Roque are the most hated political figures in the country, but I don't want to insult Cheese kasi at least si Cheese Senate President, I don't know what Harry Roque's status is last time I checked. Na-reject na yung asylum niya. And I was absolutely sure about it because last March when I was in Hague, sabi nila sa akin was, there's no way he's going to be given asylum here for, among other things, because technically speaking, hindi siya dumiretso dito. He came in through Schengen visa from another Schengen country. So bakit siya nag-apply dito? So it's very easy for the Dutch authorities to deny him an asylum. Not to mention, pugante siya, di ba? On very serious crimes that the Europeans will take seriously. Is there, I mean, as I say, if I were to write a novel about Philippine politics a la Rizal, I mean, Harry Roque would be my archetype of, like what could go wrong with the enabler, parvenu, upwardly mobile, ambitious, opportunistic, no principle type of lawyer, successful professional. I mean, what is your read of him from a very moral or even aesthetic standpoint?
Well, of course, I think dumaan tayo dun sa part ng buhay natin that we used to admire Attorney Harry Roque, I think he was, of course, everyone who's doing human rights work would always cite him as their idol or their ganyan. But of course, as you say naman, kung paano mo ma-maintain yung kumbaga struggle naman ng bawat tao na with all the temptations of power, money, and everything, how do you actually stay, 'di ba, in line na 'di ba tuloy-tuloy ka lang na hindi ka nagsisway? I think yun naman challenge natin as human beings, 'di ba? So, yun yung problema ngayon is basically he played with fire, he danced with the 'di ba?
Dance with
Kumbaga
the demon, devil. No, I mean,
kung saan
actually, for
sasabihin ko
me to,
kinumpleto. What yung punto ko is he played with fire, and of course kung nasusunog siya ngayon, it's a direct consequence of his choices. So of course I don't want naman to judge him on the basis of that, of my, kumbaga yung sense of dapat anong ginawa niya sa buhay niya, that's his own life. But yung point ko din is that kung ano man ang nangyari sa kanya ngayon, those are all yung kumbaga
consequences. Yeah, those.
compounding na
Yeah.
consequences ng lahat ng ginawa niya, choices niya in the past 6, 7 years. Uh, lahat,
Actually that's a charitable reading because some people I've talked to, I'm not including some of his former students, they would say na talagang meron siyang side na opportunista ever since. Kumbaga, the Duterte era just revealed what was there all along. Na basically sinasakyan lang niya yung mga human rights issues for publicity. I'll just be nice about it. You can connect. And that when he decided to be the spokesman for one of the most murderous democratically elected leaders in human history, that just showed the real, basically that revealed who he was all along rather than him degrading himself by some wrong choices.
well, ako naman, hindi ko naman, yung ako, I don't want to demonize naman yung pagiging opportunista, but kung ano yung opportunity na ginagrab mo is something else, diba? You could grab good opportunities and opportunities that make the country better. But if yung ginagrab mong opportunity is actually to further yung for example at that time he was notwithstanding the fact that human rights lawyer siya, he was publicly defending extrajudicial killings. So kumbaga he was just grabbing the wrong opportunities that came his way. And as I've mentioned nga, basically he's just reaping the consequences of his choices. And kung that's why in a way nasasayangan din ako because I know he's a brilliant guy. He's a very good lawyer at the time, but unfortunately medyo kumbaga ang term diyan is namali ng landas. And but ayun eh. Yun yung pinili niya, but what can we do right
But
now, di
not
ba?
that he's not enjoying his life, right? Meron siyang tulips tourism, meron siyang supranational events. But anyways, like, okay, last na talaga to. Emil, it looks like mabait ka masyado. I'll just get someone else. We'll go back to this. I just want, kasi medyo heavy tayo today, I'll be honest. I just want people to absorb what's going on. Just last point. What's this whole artsy Parisian thing going on there? Your coping mechanism after being so traumatized by everything, or is this is about Filipino art or certain kind of indigenous art? I mean, I come from Cordilleras, Baguio, and also
Yeah.
those kinds of
So
arts
very,
always
very familiar with
yeah, very, very appealing sa akin yung mga ganun, right? Like it's so me. And at the same time, if you go like to the Pacific Islands, you go to a certain even indigenous group in Taiwan, etc. They have some similar things, or even Machu Picchu, they also have some similarity with us. Ako, I always felt Philippines sayang because we have that very unique island arts thing na hindi nakikita na yung Spanish Americanized side natin or whatever, trying hard westernized side natin. But in fact, we have so much um, authentic Filipino history. Whenever I go to a Peruvian restaurant, whether it's in San Francisco or Europe, I see yung parang Cordillera style, like this is, we have that. We have Wang Og, like, nasasayangan ako, like, from an artistic, aesthetic standpoint, like, where is this coming from, Emil?
Well, yung ako naman, I think again, most people know me as an election lawyer, but actually I'm frustrated artist ako. In fact, when before I once dreamt na maging painter ako, but unfortunately my parents forced me to take up law and I ended up as a lawyer. But although yun nga sinasabi ko parati sa mga tao na um, na actually tama din yung parents ko actually in forcing me to take up law because otherwise, sabi ko kung siguro kung pintor ako, I will not be as good as the auction stars right now. So basically,
Right.
paghirap at wala rin akong makain, 'di ba? So I think it was a
So
good.
connoisseur ka.
Yeah, so in a way happy rin ako na napunta ako sa legal profession, but it did not mean actually that I abandoned my first love, which is the arts. So I'm still continuing with my interest. In fact, the way I explain nga yung bisyo ko, I would call it a bisyo or even a hobby. When it comes to art in antiquities, it's like actually my wardrobe, na kung gusto ko mag-escape, I just go into that little world of mine of beautiful things in art, and I forget about everything else that's happening outside. And I get to do some sort of a pause na yung nadidefragment ka. So you can rewire yourself and come out of that wardrobe fresh and ready to fight again. So yun yung concept ko ng art. It's like a different world. And it's something that I've been doing for since I became a lawyer back in 2010. So when I was in Comelec, actually I spent 5 years in Comelec as the chief of staff ni Chairman Brillantes. Pinuno ko actually ng painting yung buong office of the chairman. And then at that time, I was already, pag may extra na sweldo or something like that, I would buy paintings. And those paintings that I bought back in 2010, hindi ko na ma-afford actually ngayon. So, but then again,
Mayaman, may
no, but it continued, and I'm very happy na I've been doing this. Kumbaga, if you've seen my social media pages, especially Twitter, I would constantly talk about arts as well because I know that um, as you mentioned nga, napaka-rich ng art and history ng Pilipinas, and I hope to help uh, you know kumbaga na ma-promote ito and to inculcate this to the consciousness of more people outside of my circle in the arts and history circle. But then again, this is the side that most people don't see, and I think at least nakikita nyo ngayon. So these are my house, and ito yung mga favorite things ko are here.
right. Thank you so much, Emil, for that really comprehensive. We started with Cardema, we ended with Conazur artistic discussion.
Hindi ako actually prepared, but I'm happy that we talked about it. There are, for example, I haven't talked about my EJK experience for the longest time. So in fact, it was
I'm sorry. I hope I was not too intrusive.
no, hindi
Didn't.
naman. In fact, it's very important, very important naman to be reminded of the things that I stood before and still standing until now. Yung mga bagay na
Yeah.
lalaban natin. So very important 'yun para hindi tayo maging katulad ni Attorney Harry Roque na
Yeah.
makalimutan.
Moral compass. Moral
Oh, yan,
compass. Moral
exactly.
anchoring.
Correct, yan. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity and good to see you again.
Good
Okay.
to see you. Good to see you, my friend. And thank you for making Patol to this kind of a full range Renaissance man style. You know me. I always said I don't compete with anyone because I have my completely unique approach to doing things, and I hope people appreciated this wide ranging discussions. Maraming salamat, Emil. Hopefully, in the future we can bother you more on some of these issues.
Of course,
So
walang
kumbaga, we
problema.
just scratch the surface so people
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
the
Yeah.
breadth of your engagements, hindi lang intellectual curiosities and
Ah,
connoisseur. Thank you so much, Emil.
ay,
Talk to you
maraming
soon.
salamat. Thank you very much.
God
Magandang
bless. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you so